Well, good morning. Welcome to day 17 of the Democrat shutdown. I feel like on a day like this, at the end of another long week, I just feel like we ought to apologize. I hate that we have to do this. I don't want to be here any more than you do talking about this subject. It is so difficult to be a happy warrior when you know that so many millions of American people are suffering, being made to suffer unnecessarily because of the Democrats' political games. If you're keeping count at home, we're on day 17 of the shutdown. The Democrats have now voted for the 11th time to keep the government closed. 11 times now. They've refused to just do their basic job, get the government going again, making sure that federal employees are paid, that our troops are paid, Border Patrol agents, TSA agents, air traffic controllers, and everyone else who relies upon the vital services of our federal government. They're being denied that because Democrats in Congress are playing games. And right now, to add insult to injury, if you're paying attention at home, you also need to make note of this. Yesterday, the Senate Democrats took it a step further. They rejected a standalone bill to fund our nation's defense and pay our troops. They voted it down. Now, why is that so noteworthy? Well, the bill was passed out of committee in the Senate with broad bipartisan support. And yet, the Democrats still engaged in a stunt on the floor, and they rejected it. So now they are on record specifically and exclusively to block the paychecks of the troops, to block the funding of our national defense in a very dangerous moment in world history. It is absurd to us. Leader Thune said this on the floor, on the Senate floor after that vote. He said, quote, "That one vote demonstrates just how fundamentally disinterested Democrats are in supporting our troops and providing for our common defense." Yes, that is exactly what we saw. And I suspect that if they were here today and it was on the floor, they'd do it once again. Now, tomorrow, the Democrat leaders are going to join for a big party out on the National Mall. They're going to descend on our Capitol for their much-anticipated so-called No Kings rally. We refer to it by its more accurate description, the Hate America rally, okay? And I'm not sure how anybody can refute that. If you think about what's going to happen here tomorrow, you're going to bring together the Marxists, the socialists, the Antifa advocates, the anarchists, and the pro-Hamas wing of the far-left Democrat Party. That is the modern Democratic Party. That's where they've gone. And the Hate America rally is the common theme among all those groups. Listen to the language they use themselves. Many of them don't like living in America. They hate capitalism. They hate our free enterprise system. They hate our principles. They hate the ideas that we come in to work every day to fight for, to preserve, in the greatest nation in the history of the world. They hate the idea of individual freedom and limited government. They hate the idea of the rule of law. They fight against it all the time. They hate the idea of peace through strength. They lobby against it all the time. Individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, human dignity, the things that lead to human flourishing, the things that made us the greatest nation in the history of the world. They're opposed to law enforcement. They're opposed to military, and their votes show it over and over. That's the collection of voices that you'll hear tomorrow that the Democrats will go out and raise their hands with and cheer with. And some of these people are so blinded by their hatred of President Donald Trump that they can't find one reason to celebrate America or all that we've accomplished and continue to accomplish under this new administration. Now, obviously, every American has every right to exercise their First Amendment freedoms. I'm personally a big advocate of that. I spent the first 20 years of my legal career in the federal courts before I came to Congress defending the right to free speech. They have the right to do it. Republicans, by the way, are the party that fights to maximize your liberty. And we believe, just as our founders did, that every American has been endowed by God himself with unalienable rights, and that includes the rights to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. But tomorrow, this rally is not about freedom. It's about the opposite. For many of our Democrat colleagues, tomorrow is about creating really a spectacle. That's what they've been doing here every day of the shutdown with their little TikTok videos and their publicity stunts, and they're going to do it in a much larger venue tomorrow. And as the shutdown drags on, it's becoming increasingly clear that this spectacle is the reason the Democrats have refused to reopen the government. Just read a sample of the materials that this organizing group has circulated far and wide about the event tomorrow. They distributed talking points cheering on the shutdown. I mean, they're urging this on. They love this. They're cheering on Chuck Schumer's decision to close the government, and their lead organizer said this is his words, not mine, quote, "He hasn't surrendered yet. I call that progress." Maybe that's what led Chuck Schumer to say that every day of the shutdown gets better for us. That's what he said. Since then, Democrats have had their 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th opportunities to reopen the government, and they have obeyed the mob. They have listened to that. On Wednesday, this is pretty ominous. I don't know if anybody's reported on this, but you should. The lead organizer of tomorrow's event issued an open threat to Democrats in Washington, and this is what he said, quote, "The cavalry is coming in on October 18th, and they're either going to be celebrating you or they're going to be calling for new leadership in the Democrat Party." Now, I know who heard that. Chuck Schumer heard it. Hakeem Jeffries heard it. And their actions and their votes show that they are taking that as an order. Evidently, they've decided it's more important to show a fight to President Trump and appease this mob than to reopen the government and ensure the American people are taken care of. It's a binary choice right now. And to the surprise of literally no one, Chuck Schumer confirmed yesterday that he'll attend tomorrow's rally. Of course he will. He gave an impassioned speech on the Senate floor. He urged his colleagues to stand with him and fight against President Trump. The fight is absurd. Senator, you've been in office for 44 years. You've been in Congress longer than that, but you've been in Congress for 44 years, and everybody clearly understands what's going on. You're holding the entire country hostage to protect your own political career. I mean, no one can deny that. And what you're doing is absurd. You're demanding $1.5 trillion new spending instead of the clean, totally nonpartisan CR that you yourself voted for just 7 months ago. The whole charade is obvious. And I also want to point out the irony that is equally clear, okay? As much as we disagree with Schumer and the Senate Democrats and all of that's going to happen tomorrow, no one, not a single person is going to be standing in their way of their right to exercise, assemble, and protest peacefully. That alone is a profound testament to the strength of our republic, to the beauty of America. They are decrying the country that allows them to engage in this activity. And the last time I checked, Americans have more freedom right now to express themselves and speak their minds after Republicans took over and ended the years of having millions of Americans' voices systematically silenced during the COVID pandemic years and the left's cancel culture. It is the Republicans that restored your right to share and speak your mind. And that's the first and most obvious irony of the Hate America rally. The second and even more absurd fact is that all the Democrats who are so angry that they don't control the government are the same people who have decided to shut it down and hand the keys to President Trump. That's the great irony. Chuck Schumer said it himself. I brought just 2 lines out of his New York Times op-ed that he wrote and published March 18th of this year. And he pointed out there, in a shutdown, this is his words, the Trump administration would have wide-ranging authority. He said there's no check on their determinations on what is essential and what is not. Chuck Schumer put it in writing and published it. He knew this scenario, and he is the one that has decided to hand the keys to the kingdom to President Trump. When he shut down the legislative branch, the chief executive has the authority to make the decisions in the executive branch. He has no choice. They have turned off the funding streams, and they have to triage the situation with federal spending. Everybody on the mall this weekend should recognize and remember who's responsible for taking the reins of Congress and handing them to President Trump. It's Chuck Schumer. He's the one that's done it, and he can make it stop tomorrow if he had the courage to tell you the truth. But he's incapable of telling the truth right now, and he's doing something that's unprecedented. Never in the history of Congress has a party shut down the government over a clean CR. This is an unprecedented event, and it's inexcusable. And it's Chuck Schumer who's making the decision to keep the government closed. And until the mob and Bernie and AOC and the rest of the socialists give him permission to reopen the government, we're afraid that Americans are going to continue to suffer at the hands of Democrats' political games. I doubt Americans will hear that on the protest stage tomorrow, but that is the truth. And it's why Republicans are here and will continue to be here every single day, sharing the facts with the American people for as long as it takes. In just a moment, you're going to get to hear from our dear friend and colleague, the chairman of our Armed Services Committee, Chairman Mike Rogers of Alabama. As I mentioned at the top of the remarks, Democrats have voted 11 times now to block the paychecks for our troops. And we have a duty to support those men and women who defend our country and all the rest of us. And the Democrats are failing our brave heroes. Chairman Rogers is here to tell you more about that and the other grave implications for our national defense and our military readiness. I'm happy to introduce him to you right now. Chairman Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate that. I appreciate all of y'all being here and focusing on what this means for us. We are very fortunate that President Trump found a way to pay our troops this Wednesday on their payday. For those of you who aren't aware, this country has never, for the last 148 years, because of congressional inaction, failed to pay the troops on time. 1877 was the last time. That would have happened this Wednesday, but for what President Trump did. I do want you to know that that option is not going to be available in 2 weeks for their next paycheck. We had 2 million service members that were able to get paid this week because of President Trump's creativity. And these are families that are serving around the world, many of them in very unfavorable conditions, making huge sacrifices for our freedom and safety. And most of them live paycheck to paycheck. Most of them have less than $3,000 in savings, and 1 in 5 of them only have one source of income. So this is very real for these folks. Now, the 500,000 civilian federal employees, they're going to miss their first paycheck next week, and then the rest of them the week thereafter. This is going to get really painful for a lot of civilian employees. Obviously, I think about the DOD civilian employees, but throughout the federal workforce, people will start missing their first paycheck next week and the week after, and it is solely at the feet of Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate. This body has passed a funding bill that just continued the Biden budget for a few weeks while we negotiated, and it's the Democrats who have decided to shut this government down. Another consequence that we're dealing with, we were just informed last night by the National Nuclear Security Administration, the group that handles and manages our nuclear stockpile, that the carryover funding they've been using is about to run out. They will have to lay off 80% of their employees. These are not employees that you want to go home. They're managing and handling a very important strategic asset for us. They need to be at work and being paid. Other things that some of our civilian and active duty, the active duty employees are having to suffer is they don't get to do routine medical and dental care when they're in a shutdown. They don't have tuition assistance when they're in a shutdown. If you're got a permanent duty change of station that's occurred during the shutdown, you're just stuck. Your apartment may already be closed. You may be your furniture on a truck going somewhere, and you're just stuck in limbo. All these things are real life problems for people that are being imposed on them by the Democrats. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, their governments are not shut down. These are the members of the axis of evil that we're having to deal with, and we need our Defense Department operating on all cylinders. Y'all know we've recently passed the reconciliation bill. We're in the middle of contract negotiations for nuclear submarines, for destroyers, for aircraft carriers. All that had to stop because of this. We have personnel that are supposed to be analyzing our intelligence gathering. They're gone home. They've gone home. They can't do their jobs. This has very real national security implications that Chuck Schumer has imposed on this country, and it needs to end. It needs to end, especially now before people start missing paychecks. And with that, I'll yield to the leadership.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers. Well, Chairman Rogers just laid out some of the dire consequences that are happening today because Chuck Schumer decided to shut down the government. And a lot of people ask, what's the off-ramp? And especially they ask, what changed in Chuck Schumer from just a few months ago, back in March when Chuck Schumer voted for these very same funding levels? Chuck Schumer himself voted for these funding levels in March, and today he's shutting the entire government down, jeopardizing America's national security over those same levels. And so what changed? And I think you don't need to look any further than what you saw on the stage in New York last night. A debate between the leading candidates for mayor of New York to see how far Chuck Schumer's party has moved to the socialist left. When you see Mondami, who's the leading candidate and by all accounts is going to win going away for mayor of New York, has taken over the Democrat Party in the state of New York. And his main opponent on that stage, there is no bench in the Democrat Party. It was disgraced former Governor Cuomo, who was run out of office for, among other things, instituting policies during COVID that led to the death of thousands of senior citizens. That's the best that the Democrat Party has to offer in the city of New York. And so Chuck Schumer's watching all of this and recognizing that from March till today, his own party has moved so far to the socialist left that he's now afraid for his own political future. And to try to hold on and grasp one last ounce of power for himself, he's willing to jeopardize millions of American families. And that is who is paying the consequence for Chuck Schumer's actions, for the tantrum that he's having. He is more concerned, as the speaker pointed out, at impressing the Hate America rally crowd that's coming up here tomorrow than he is about not solving all of our problems. Tomorrow, if he voted today to open up the government, it wouldn't solve our differences. And we all know we have big differences. We have 3 appropriations bills that are in a conference committee that, frankly, Republicans and Democrats on those committees had already worked out the differences. And it was Chuck Schumer who walked away back then a few weeks ago and decided then he was going to shut the government down. Not because we had really big differences on those policies, but because he needed to appease the radical base that had taken over his own party. And so maybe as Chuck Schumer starts realizing the consequences of his actions, and maybe it's the people that are holding Chuck Schumer hostage that we need to make an appeal to release Chuck Schumer so he can release the American people. But over and over again, we're going to keep talking about the damage that Chuck Schumer's actions in shutting down the government are causing on real people. Our men and women in uniform, yes, President Trump was able to stave off for a few more weeks by finding money to pay for them, but as Chairman Rogers pointed out, that account's about to go dry. But there are other federal employees that were not able to get paid just in this most recent pay schedule. And my local media outlet, WWL-TV, just did a story today that went live about the consequences to those federal employees. We're talking about thousands of people just in Southeast Louisiana. Maybe Chuck Schumer doesn't care about those people, but his party is causing pain through a lot of corners of this country. I want to read a quote from the director of the food bank in the New Orleans area. He said, quote, "Demand is up, supply is down, and now we're getting hammered by the fallout from the government shutdown as more and more people who may have been expecting to get that paycheck to buy groceries. So now they'll come to us or one of our 500 partners to get food assistance." That was the chief strategy officer of Second Harvest Food Bank in New Orleans, just representing one area of the country where thousands of federal workers can't even afford to buy groceries and are going to a local food bank so that Chuck Schumer can appease the most radical socialists in his party. This is affecting real people. And there's a bill that, again, doesn't solve all of our differences, but just allows those people to be freed so that they can get back to work. They can get their paychecks. They can provide food for their family while we negotiate those differences for another few weeks. It's time for Chuck Schumer to end this madness. There's a bill to open the government. Let's go solve our differences, negotiate our differences, but in the meantime, stop holding the American people hostage, Chuck Schumer. Yield now to our conference chair, Lisa McClain.
Thank you. Well, happy Friday, everybody. Here we are again. It's been almost a month since House Republicans passed a bill to keep your government open. And what have Democrats done in all that time? They have voted now 11 times to shut the government down. Shut the government down. 10 times to deny paychecks to troops. 10 times to block food assistance from struggling moms and families. 10 times to close our national parks. And 10 times to force our TSA agents, Border Patrol officers, and air traffic controllers to work. without pay. Why? Ask yourself why. Because Democrats are holding the American people hostage, using you as leverage to demand more wasteful spending. That's what they want, to the tune of $1.5 trillion of that. And what do they want you to spend your money on? Well, again, let's take a look at it again. I know I sound like a broken record, but these are the facts. Government benefits for illegal immigrants. They want to spend your tax dollars on that. They want to spend your tax dollars on handouts to left-wing media outlets. They want to spend your tax dollars on to fund LGBTQ awareness campaigns, not here, but overseas, right? Because your money should be spent on LGBTQ awareness overseas. And pet projects that President Trump already shut down for being wasteful and woke. See, the Democrats like the wokeness, and they advocate for the waste, the fraud, and the abuse. And they advocate for that on your backs and with your money. It makes no sense until you see who's really calling the shots. This weekend, we'll see mobs of radicals at the I Hate America rally. And you'll see them across the country. These are the same activists who pressure Democrats to keep our government closed, to hurt you, to divide us, and to push their far left agenda. So when you see those images, remember this. This is who Democrats are fighting for. Not you, not our troops, not the hardworking moms down the street. They're fighting for the most radical voices in America. And make sure that they own that. Right? It's time to stop catering to the protesters and start standing with the American workers. Open the government, pay our troops, reject Chuck Schumer's dirty little deal, and let's get back to work for the American people.
Thank you. Okay, questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker, what's your message to the 170 or so U.S. citizens who have been detained by ICE? About 20 of them are children. And to your GOP colleagues, do you support ICE raids in the agriculture and hospitality sectors of your districts?
I don't know what you're talking about with the children. I do know that ICE is...
170 U.S. citizens, according to ProPublica, have been detained by ICE so far since January.
Okay, I haven't seen that, so I'm not going to comment on it. But I will tell you that ICE is doing the job that the American people demanded that they do. If you look back at the election results of 2024, it was overwhelming. And virtually every poll noted that the border and the issues that came from the open border were the number one issue on the minds of Americans. It's largely why President Trump won such an overwhelming victory in the election, won all 7 swing states and 75 million popular votes. House Republicans got 74.8 million popular votes, the highest vote total we've ever had in history, and largely because we were talking about the madness of the open border and all the chaos that ensued and came from that. Now, the border has been totally closed. There's virtually 0 illegal crossings now in the last 4 months as it's been recorded, and that's because you have strong leadership. The Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's what ICE stands for, don't forget. They're enforcing federal law. They're enforcing the federal immigration law. There's about 20 million people who crossed that border when it was wide open for 4 years. A lot of them are very dangerous people that need to be rounded up and sent right back home, and they're doing their very dead level best to do that. But anyone who breaks our law has to make account for that, because you have to enforce the law or you don't have a sovereign country. If you don't have a border, you don't have sovereignty. The administration is doing the best they can. They're trying to ensure that we get some sanity back to the situation. Ultimately, we need comprehensive immigration reform to deal with all this. You'll never be able to round up 20 million illegal aliens, but they've focused their attention early on, and you can see by their actions, they focused on the dangerous criminal illegal aliens who came across the country, and that has been roundly applauded by everyone in America because it did us great harm. And it will continue to do us great harm if you don't have a strong commander-in-chief. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you very much. Hakeem Jeffries earlier today said to expect swift legal action if Adelaide Grijalva isn't sworn in today during the pro forma session. What's your reaction to that? Are you still committing to only swear her in when the House is back in
I thought Hakeem was a better attorney than that. It's a publicity stunt by a Democrat attorney general in Arizona who sees a national moment and wants to call me out. She has nothing whatsoever to do with what's happening in Congress. Rep-elect Grijalva is to be congratulating for winning her late father's seat. We love that. We're going to administer the oath to her as soon as we get back to our regular legislative session, as I've said 1,000 times. That is the issue. We're going to, I'm following the Pelosi precedent, by the way, as I've noted here. Our dear friend and colleague, Julia Letlow from Louisiana, won her special election in similar circumstances, replaced her late husband, who passed away tragically because of COVID, Luke, our friend. And Julia won the race, and Nancy Pelosi took 25 days to administer the oath to her, and no one held a rally or stomped around or barged indoors or did TikTok videos about it, because we understood that was the way the process works. If you look over the history of the institution, this is how it works. No one is impeding her. And by the way, I would say to Rep. Grijalva, if her Democrat colleagues and leadership have not informed her, you can be serving your constituents right now. You have an office. She's hired 16 employees. They keep going by and knocking on the door and pretending it's locked. If it's locked, it's because Rep. Grijalva is choosing not to represent her constituents. She can be handling their calls, directing them appropriately, and doing lots of important work right now. I don't know if she is. I hope she is. No ill will towards her at all. I'm going to congratulate her, as I do every colleague who comes in, and we'll do it as soon as we can get the government open again, and get all these Americans who are suffering taken care of. Yes, ma'am. Back here.
Thank you. What is your reaction to Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene saying this is a serious issue in regards to Representative Corey Mills and accusing you of hypocrisy over the handling of this situation versus George Santos?
I don't know. I try not to react to what Marjorie Taylor Greene says every day. I did see, somebody told me that she accused me of ousting Santos, which of course is the exact opposite of the history. Everyone can go review what happened. I opposed his expulsion from Congress. I voted against it. I advocated to my colleagues not to do that. And you can take George Santos's word for it himself. I think right before he submitted to prison, he did a very friendly social media post about me and how I'd been such a great friend to him and a help to the guy. I had a lot of, I was trying to reach out to him as I would any colleague who's in a difficult situation. And I'll be frank. I talked to George Santos about redemption and about, God's mercy and grace. So look, I don't know what Marjorie's talking about. Corey Mills, I noted a few days ago when I was asked about Corey Mills, I'm aware of the allegations against him. I'm an attorney, so I'm going to reserve judgment on that, let the legal process play out, as I should, as anyone would expect. But what I said about Corey from the podium, I meant he's been a very hardworking member of Congress. He digs in deep on his areas of expertise and all of that, and he's served his constituents faithfully, so far as I've seen. I mean, he's been, a hardworking colleague here. With regard to what's going on in his personal life, I don't know. I mean, I know people want me to throw colleagues under the bus. I don't do that. I'm not going to do that. And we'll let the legal process play out. So thank y'all so much.